am Brian Henson. The clip you just watched was a test that my father shot with Frank Oz to prove to Universal Studios that the Muppets could work in the real world. That was before doing the Muppet movie. And as you can see, it was complete nonsense, and it convinced them immediately. As you can see from there and from everything, now you guys get to see exactly how we do all this and how things go wrong, and that's okay, and it takes a lot of people. And what we do here is we just try to have a lot of fun, and it's complete nonsense, and we do have a lot of fun. That's really what my father, everything, all his work was about was sort of celebrating life and goofing around and laughing at life. And it takes a lot of people to do this, to do what we do, this sort of mayhem. And a lot of things go wrong. And during the show, you've been noticing the things that go wrong, and that's part of the fun, I think. And it's okay. I wanted to introduce you to some of the people. Well, the way my father worked was he would say that one of the most exciting things to him was watching what was originally his idea become something completely different when it was finished. And that was very exciting to him, that he liked to bring people together and make something that only that group of people could have made by getting them all to take part in it and to put their 10 cents into it. And that's really why it's such an exciting group to work in, and when people start working with us, they tend not to want to leave. I want to introduce you to some of those people in the group that he pulled together for the Muppet Show. But first, I'd like to mention a few of the people that aren't actually here tonight that were obviously very important. Well, my father's not here, as you all know, and you don't... But some of the people that he gathered around him, Don Saleen used to be kind of the head of the Muppet Workshop in the early years. In the early years, everybody did everything, but Don mostly built puppets, and he had a wicked sense of humor, and he was a sort of a mad prankster, and that sort of energy that came into the Muppets, a lot of that came from Don, and his spirit lives on within the group. And then somebody that was very important, right in the core performers, was Richard Hunt. And Richard performed Scooter and Beaker and a whole number of characters, and was just about the funniest guy I knew in the world. And he was always on. So when you'd go and visit the set, it was when we were kids, we would just all run to Richard, you know, and Richard would entertain everybody, and when there were people visiting the set, you could never get him in front of the camera because he was over entertaining the people visiting, which was great. But he passed away a few years back, and we miss him. There are those who couldn't be here. Jerry Jewell, who was the head writer of the Muppets, and he was the head writer through most of the Muppet Show, and either wrote or co-wrote every Muppet movie that we made. And he's very prolific, and he just couldn't make it tonight. But he wishes us all well. And Frank Oz, obviously you all know. I think Frank is arguably one of the best, if not the best, comic in the world, probably, and comedian. He, as you know, has another little career as a film director, and he's busy on that one right now. And then a couple of other people that were instrumental to the pulling together of the business and helping it all actually happen. Bernie Brillstein, who was my father's manager, he really believed in the Muppets through all those early years, and was really instrumental in pushing the Muppets to the front and making them the phenomenon that they became. And David Laser was the executive producer of the Muppet Show. And he can't be with us either. He's over in New York, and he was like my father's business partner and the executive producer. He was the classiest man in the he was that's wrong sorry he is the classiest man in the world. And we used to, when everybody on the Muppet Show was all sort of scraggly and stuff like that, and there was fluff and fur floating around all over the place, and he was always in a perfect three-piece suit that was not, it was perfectly smooth and perfectly ironed. He really was the classiest guy there was, and he kind of made the Muppets classy even while they were so insane and so irreverent. And those are some of the people who couldn't make it tonight. But in addition to those people, my father assembled a core of creative performers that started the Muppet Show and continue to this day. And 3 of those original performers are here with us tonight and performing for you, and I'd like to introduce them. Steve Whitmire, who Steve performs Kermit, and he's taken over Kermit from my father, and performs Rizzo and Bean Bunny and a whole number of characters. He's also taken over Beaker. Extraordinary performer. Next is Dave Goles. Dave also performs a whole slew of characters, but certainly tonight you're seeing him doing Gonzo and Bunsen Honeydew, 2 of his favorites and 2 of our favorites. And third is Jerry Nelson. Jerry was one of the very first performers to join the company. I think only performer before him was Frank. Is that right, Jerry?
Yeah, Jerry used to perform as well, but
Jerry
he hated it.
Yeah. He decided he wanted to write, stay on the typewriter. But Jerry performs an enormous number of characters. During the Muppet Show, when there was a new characters coming in, Jerry would inevitably always or often take them, and is one of the most flexible performers I know of. And tonight you're seeing him do Floyd and Robin the Frog, and he's got a huge number of characters that he does. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys with the stage.
Okay.
I drew this short straw, so I get to go first. A couple quick things I'll talk about. One was the first time I ever met Jim, which was really wild and crazy. I was about 18 years old, and I had made contact with Jim through Carol Spinney, who does Big Bird. And I went up to New York for the first time. I lived in Atlanta. I'd never been out of Atlanta before in my life. So I was pretty young and no pun, green. And so I showed up in New York. It was the winter of 1977, 78. It was a record cold winter. I had no winter coat because I lived in the South. And I had my little Foot Locker full of puppets, I drug up there. And I had $25 when I arrived at the airport, LaGuardia. I got my cab to the airport. I was so excited, spent all my money there, getting there. So excited, couldn't eat dinner that night, I had no money. I didn't even know you could charge things to your room. So the next morning I got up and I got to the Henson office on 67th. Actually, it was the 67th Street. I made a mistake and got dropped off at 57th Street. And I didn't have enough money to take another cab, so I walked the 10 blocks with my trunk and my no coat. Got to the office, there's this little tiny sign about like this that said Henson Associates at the top. And I walked up and I rang the doorbell. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and snow piled up on the sides of the building. I'm freezing and lots of people walking by. So I pushed this doorbell, what I thought was a doorbell, and I hear this, and I just stand there and I think, that's interesting. So then it stopped, and I kind of back up and I look up at the windows, it's a tall building, and I hit the button again. And it goes, and I just stand there. See, I'd never encountered one of these doors where you get buzzed in. They didn't have those in the South. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know why. Some Yankee invention, I guess. I don't know. But I did the same thing. I kept looking up. I thought I'd set off an alarm or something. So I hit it the third or fourth time, and it buzzed again, and there was a long pause. And all of a sudden, I'm sort of standing behind the door, at the door. It comes flying open and pushes me back on the sidewalk, and Jim steps out. And he sort of staggers out onto the street, and he's all disheveled, and his hair's messy, and his shirt's untucked, and he's got a broom in his hand. And then the first sun, it's like this. The first sun of the day hits his eyes, and he kind of squinted, and he looks around. He looks up and down the street, And I said, "Hi, I'm Steve Whitmire." And he said, he looked puzzled, and I said, "The puppeteer from Atlanta." And he invited me in, and he said, "Oh, yeah, come on in." We were to go up this long flight of stairs. Jim had apparently spent the night there the night before, working really late, and was up sweeping the stairs. And go up the steps, and he says, he said, "We weren't really expecting you till about 10 in the morning. Things don't really get going around here till 10:30. It's 8. And I'm thinking, God, I'm sorry, I got to make a good impression. So I said, "Well, I could go out and come back." And I'm thinking, oh, please, God, don't let him send me out. I have no money. I have no coat. I'm dragging my puppets up the steps. And he said, "Yeah, that would probably be a good idea." So I went up to the corner and nursed a $1.50 cup of coffee at Woolworth's for about 2 hours. But the point of that whole story was that week was my audition with Jim. And what that audition says a lot about who Jim was, because we went in and put on puppets for maybe 15, 20 minutes and worked in front of a mirror. And the rest of the week, it was like 3 or 4 days, and Jane Henson was there, and David Laser, and Al Gottesman, who worked with the company at that time. And it was really not about, it was about seeing me do puppets. That was part of it. But it was also about getting to know those people over those days. That was so important to Jim, to find out whether you were going to mix with the group, to get this group of people together who could have fun, on top of the performance. So jumping many, many years later, it came time when I was asked to do Kermit. And that was really scary, as you might imagine. I had known Jim for about 13 or 14 years at that point. Worked on basically everything he had done with this group of Muppets, not Sesame Street, but everything else. Worked very close together, and it was super intimidating. It was a great honor to be asked, and I was just scared to death. And so they sent, Brian and the family made this decision, sent me one of the puppets down, took it out of a box, and I had had the puppet on before. I'd never performed it for anything, but I'd had it on around the shop. So I put him on, and I held him up in front of a mirror. I knew how to make the puppet talk. I had been doing this for a long time, and I fiddled with some of those expressions that Jim would do with Kermit, And then I opened my mouth to say something, and nothing came out. There was no way I could find a voice or the voice. And so the puppet just sort of looked at me like, "Come on, you can do it." And I took it off and put it in a closet and left it there for a month and didn't touch it. I couldn't go near it. But then it hit me that Jim always had a face that he made. We do these characters, and we sort of push a performance that an actor would do out through this hand. But we're down here, we make stupid faces all the time.
Don't watch us.
We're down here going,
Don't look at our faces.
But Jim had a particular face he made when he did Kermit, and what he did was that he frowned and he sort of pulled his mouth out to the side. And I thought, well, where can I see that? And I remember that I'd taken home movies of Jim backstage, and I had the camera poked in his face for about half an hour while he was doing Kermit. So I watched these movies, and that's where it all came from. If it weren't for working with Jim for 14 years and those movies, Kermit would not exist. There's no way he could be here. I just think that's kind of cool.